Hi and welcome to Dynamics Update. So me and Gustav had a chat the other day on what we are supposed to do now when Microsoft has decreased the frequency of updates, because now we are sort of out of work. But since we find it very fun to talk, I think we can figure something out. So with me as usual is Gustav, of course. Hi, Gustav.
Hello. Hello.
And we actually, if I'm not wrong, we actually have the first returning guest to Dynamics Update ever, I think.
Yeah.
Alex, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's a high honor, Johan. Thanks for having me, Gustav and Johan. Thanks for having me back on the podcast. My name is Alex Meyer. I work for a company called Protivity that does business consulting. I focus in on the Dynamics 365 security area, focusing in on the F&O space and helping customers create compliant security, looking at their licenses and things like that.
Great. Welcome to the show. I mean, last time we had you, we were discussing specifically that. I mean, from an area, an ISV area, discussing the segregation of duties, how to make best use of ISVs and role assignment and security roles. When my kids are very proud that I'm on Spotify. We have not as many listeners as maybe as their favorite artists. And tonight, when they asked what we were going to talk about, I said segregation of duties. They just rolled their eyes and they went to bed. So, yeah. But from our little initiated group of people here, that's a very, very tricky area to cover in F&O and in all business applications, I would guess. And I know now you've switched roles a little bit and you've moved to Protivity, as you say. Yeah. But you still have a security focus working with those types of implementations, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I still use FastPath, the application that I helped write on a day-to-day basis. We use that tool to help do a lot of the analyses, and then Protivity comes and actually will be able to interpret the results from FastPath and then create business action plans going forward on how best to remediate a particular risk, segregation of duties risk, sensitive access risk, or what we could potentially do to help lower license costs for customers as well. So we really come at it in a couple different ways, and really try to deliver the entire package to the customer. Right, they can get the really great tooling from FastPath, and then the expertise and services from Protivity to help actually utilize that tool to the best of its ability.
Cool. But you're also here tonight to talk about your new little, you said it on your blog, passion project, the Dynamics. Describe it yourself. I think that's a great new tool that you just published, or the first version you published at least.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like to do, and obviously I think we all do here on the call, is to give back to the community. And the way that I have found that I can do that the best is to try to take really complex topics, like you talked about, segregation of duties or licensing or security within F&O, and try to break those down and make it easier to digest. And the second part to that is, because of the background I have in software development, I do like to try and take manual or complex processes and try to create a solution from those. And that's kind of where the tool kind of came from. And it's a combination of, things that I've come across in the consulting world, or even the ISV world, where it was just, hey, it would be cool or make things easier if we could do X, Y, and Z. And so that's kind of where this initially came from. And then, of course, one of the big things for us, right, is to give back to the community, right? So I wanted to make sure that this wasn't behind a paywall or anything like that, and that we allowed the community to give feedback on the project, but then also, if they wanted to actually provide their own, pieces to this as well, right? If they wanted to put their own code into it.
So the thing is, I actually thought about, I read about this a bit today, and I actually found a similar tool that I'm actually using myself, and that's the Windows Power Toys.
Yeah.
So Microsoft actually built like a container where they added like one or two tools, and then all of the other tools has basically been people building things for themselves and just adding them to PowerToys in this case, so that now if you look at PowerToys today, there is like 30 or 40 tools or something that does completely different things.
Right.
And I mean, I think this is a really, really great idea, because this means that eventually you can use this to get all of those tools that you before had in, like as Gustav said before, in XPOs and stuff on your hard drive, and you check it in, and first of all you get a good simple install to get it installed, but the thing is that you also get to share it with people who hasn't built it, who maybe doesn't even have thought of building it, and who maybe even, I mean, customers who don't have the knowledge to build it can use it.
So the name of the tool is sysadmin, or the admin toolkit, right? D365FO Admin Toolkit, right?
Yep.
Can you tell us what's the capabilities are right now in the first release?
Yeah. So, the admin toolkit it does a couple different things out of the gate. The first one the first feature that we have was one that kind of sprung up by happenstance. In I was on an engagement where we were having issues trying to get access to test accounts to test security. And so one of the solutions in that case was, we could go ahead and we were assigned sysadmin. We could use our own test accounts if we could somehow remove our sysadmin account, right? Do our testing and then assign sysadmin back. And so that's what that was the initial use case for that the feature itself. Was to actually remove sysadmin and then grant it back. But it very quickly morphed into, based on some feedback, into, what if I wanted to basically create like a firefighter access, right? And I want to, be at a lower privilege and grant myself sysadmin and then be able to go back. And so that's, you can use that functionality in two different ways depending on what your use case is. And so that was the initial the driver for it. And then around that, right, I was putting on my audit hat again, right? Wanted to make sure that we were tracking when the sysadmin role was either granted or revoked from a user. So being able to track that portion of it, right, report on it, have a full report. So if you need to show your auditors, right, when a particular user was granted sysadmin, when it was revoked, you can have that. And then, the other thing that we just added in for a 1.1 release was the ability to export all of your role access in one CSV file. So instead of having to go to each role and going to view permissions, right, and exporting that out, now there's one basically job to go in and export those all at once. And then we actually had our first community contribution from someone going in and writing some test cases, unit tests around certain configuration options and making sure that the configuration values that were set were valid around that. So it's been pretty exciting so far to kind of see the community not only, great feedback from LinkedIn and, emails and different, feature requests coming in, but also seeing the actual community give back, right, to actually have the first contribution to the toolkit as well.
Yeah,
that's really nice.
That's really, really cool. Since I'm from like a infrastructure background, so this basically works like the UAC functionality in Windows. So then when you need to be admin, you are admin, and then it's automatically revoked from you again.
Yeah. So you can actually, right now it's on demand. So you can actually go and demand, or like request, or basically say, I want to be assigned sysadmin and then revoke it. One of the feature requests that actually came in was to put a time constraint on that, right? So basically say, I only want this for, an hour or 2 hours, and automatically revoke it. So that's actually one of the things that I want to add in the near future. And then looking long term, one of the things that F&O has kind of always, from an audit perspective, has always been kind of difficult to do is a true like firefighter access that you see in SAP or Oracle, where because they're capturing every transaction, right, they can go in and actually say, here's what this user did while they were assigned sysadmin.
Yep.
And now with the addition of the telemetry data that you can get within F&O, you have the option or the ability to potentially mimic that by going in and looking to say, maybe not being able to get down the transaction level right away, but being able to see which pages and forms and things this user did while during the time frame of that they were assigned sysadmin, right? So using the capture, the assign and revoke time period, and then going, making a call to the telemetry data to say, what did they do during this time, right? And being able to tie that off, and then getting closer to, a true quote unquote firefighter access in that case.
Yeah, and
that's very nice. We
really
correlate the activity done from telemetry data with your report there. What during which time that user was assigned admin privileges. Okay,
yeah, that's the long-term goal for that particular piece of it. But yeah, that was something that kind of was a light bulb moment when somebody brought up the use case of like, well, why can't we do this? And it's like, yeah, you're right. This isn't why can't we do this?
And I mean, it's a great functionality as well if you have like an external support organization, and because they shouldn't normally have access to production, but it might be that they need to go in and fix things. So then they actually need to request access and be granted access during a certain time. And as you said, you have a perfect log of exactly everything they did. Because I mean, it's quite interesting. I've been raising this as well, that you have a lot of governance rules on the financial side in F&O, but there are surprisingly few governance rules on the admin side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's one of those areas where I think, Microsoft is doing what they have to do from the finance side, right? They have to have the governance rules in place, right, to even be able to sell the product. But from the administrative side, it's almost like they check the box, right? And it's good enough. And then, it's not until you actually get in there and start dealing with it, or, you have an external or external auditor come and say, well, where are your admin, functionality from a governance perspective? And then, it's
right here. It's a admin role. That's what.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then you're scrambling trying to figure it out. So I 100% agree that it's a definite vacuum of different features and functionality that probably should be. People think that this functionality probably already exists, and it doesn't. And so that was one of the areas, or one of the reasons I started creating this as well. Is there's a lot of admin functionality that doesn't exist that you think should probably just be there, right? And so that's kind of one of the things too that I wanted to address.
That's very nice, and it's released on GitHub, so I mean it's downloadable, and that's I think one of the most fun aspects of working with business applications now as opposed to earlier. I mean, we could all make the joke that in AX 2009 everyone was always admin, so auditing was probably a nightmare. And I know that's still the case in some instances. So that kind of further drives the point to make use of these reports. But if we just pause the security aspect of it and the open source, the community aspect of doing this thing. I mean, you're coming at it from a security perspective, of course. So naturally, the tool solves a security related issue. But I mean, it's fun to hear as well that your feedback that you've got. How long has it been released? When did you? I don't remember the date. When you?
It's just over a week now, and so the feature list is definitely, or feature request list has definitely grown because we've had great feedback from people going, well, this is something that impacts me, right? These are things that I see, and so it's cool to see the different viewpoints, right, that people are coming from, where to say what's important to them. And so it's great. You just mentioned, it's obviously going to start with my background in the security focused area, but the way that I am envisioning it and the way that I kind of put it out there is that it's just an admin toolkit, right? So it can go anything from user creation, user role, the security side. It could be, data management. It could be, whatever. It can kind of go across multiple areas. And so that's kind of why I went that path and didn't make it like security focused per se.
No, exactly. It's called Admin Toolkit, not
Right.
not Security Toolkit, right? So that's it makes so. And I compared it. You compared it to Power Toys. Sorry,
Mhm.
I compared it to SysInternals, the suite that we used to use for Windows servers.
Right.
Had all these nifty little tools that were like you can't live without them, and that's the. And I think like using GitHub and using the whole sharing. I would imagine a number of companies, consulting firms, implementation companies have kind of this feature. They have their own little package, but it's behind a wall, right? So you have to. It's kind of part of the package that they sell. You doing it this way allows for much more flexibility. I think from a community perspective, I totally understand the point of selling a product that solves something, but this is more like day to day, making sure that it actually works. It's not something that you maybe do as a part of an implementation. You need to have it from your operational perspective, because as soon as that auditor comes and wants to see your report, you are, if you're starting from scratch, then you are you have to scratch your head a little bit to get around it. I especially like the CSV export of the role security roles. I think that's a very nice feature that you could solve it in a number of ways, but it's always ends up in a developer's knee somewhere, and in the end, what you want is some kind of report telling you what you have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could get to a similar type of report going into the AOT, right? But you were losing out on some of if you created security in the UI, you could do it in the UI, but you had to do it manually. And so it was kind of, just trying to speed up that process. The long-term goal for that is that one of the things that, again, sorry to put the security hat back on, but one of the things that is very difficult in currently is, and not just for security, but this is where we're going to, where I'm seeing it starting, is comparing environments. And so comparing security between environments, being able to go to a dev and a UAT, or even a 10.38, which was just released, right? And comparing it against your 10.37 to see what's changed. And so potentially, right, that could move into a much larger of comparing configurations between environments, right? Between a gold and a dev, right? And doing other things like that, but trying to create some sort of platform for doing that comparison is kind of really cool. the idea behind it. So initially it's going to be somewhat security focused to actually compare security between environments, but eventually I want to kind of create the overall, hey, I want to, basically go out and grab configurations between two environments, right? And see if we can compare them to validate that one environment doesn't have, different, right. Or even, a configuration value, right? One of them is set, has this parameter set, this way and set somewhere else another way. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good use case for it. And that's, again, the interesting thing with doing it from a community perspective, publishing it on GitHub, because you get all of these different varying use cases that you would normally see. If you have it locked behind your own wall, you would see only the things that you encounter. Now you get to see like everything in the wild. And you and I discussed that, Johan, just a couple of days ago, the hassle of security roles. I mean, that's a big topic to discuss. Do we do standard or do we cut? I mean, just the maintainability of those in an environment where you can have people doing it in the UI, you can do it. You need to develop your own privileges. Just the manageability of those things and moving it between environments. If you want to have some kind of ALM functionality on that, it's not super easy just out of the box. You have to invent a lot of stuff. So having these capabilities here will help a lot, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of those moments where I'm actually very sad that I'm not more of a developer, because I have so many things I would like to put into this, because there are a couple of situations where I feel that there is some things lacking that I would like to get done. So that's really something I would like.
Well, Johan, I I'll give you a little behind the scenes. There will be a feature request board coming out soon for this. So you can put all your ideas in there and we can get community voting on them.
Yes. You can't. You are not going to be able to shut me up. I can assure you that.
Yeah, you're going to regret that, I think, Alex.
It sounds good right now.
Gustav all the time and tell him, I could you please help me with this? Could you do this? Could you please?
I had to create a separate list in my to-do app just for you.
There you go.
Yeah. There is this word that I learned from a Microsoft employee, which is nerd sniping, and that's actually when I come to Gustav and say, I bet you can't do this.
Yeah,
and then he's like 2 days later, it's like it's there, done.
I would 100% fall for that too, Gustav. That's 100% just an Achilles heel for me.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing, right?
I can always tell him like I think this is too hard for you. I think you can't do this. This is
it's a mindset.
No one will be able to fix this.
That would 100% get me too. That's,
absolutely, and it's fun because in the end it works out and you learn something. But just don't tell anyone else. I'm saying here on my podcast. We'll see how it goes. So I mean, how much time do you spend on this? It's a passion project, so that's the other part of doing it like an open source project. You can never really commit to any deliverables right from a schedule, and I think that's from a community perspective. Everyone, I hope at least everyone understands that it's you do it when you can, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things where, as I have time, it's kind of, or, the opportunity comes up to work on it. But yeah, like you mentioned, this is a passion project. It's not part of my day-to-day at my job. And so it's kind of, there's a lot of really, really cool ideas like we've been talking about that I want to do. And it's kind of trying to figure out how to prioritize and what the, what that kind of looks like. And so I have no, like you said, there's no hard deadlines as far as when things are going to be released. It's more of, as time permits. But it is something that, like you said, that I am passionate about. And so I do, it's one of the, I'm one of those crazy guys that this is kind of my hobby. Right. And so as time permits, it's something that I like to do. So, and it's one of those also, if there are people that are interested in wanting to join, 100% reach out and we can, are wanting to help contribute to this. 100% open to that. Obviously anybody can go on, it's open source on GitHub and they can, make a branch and put a pull request in for a feature or anything like that. And, we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean that's the game changer here. That you could spend your time doing reviewing pull requests and just making sure that contributions are solid, right? That's where the exponential growth comes in on these things. And of course,
absolutely,
also just reading feature requests, I think is a nerdy hobby of mine. Just seeing what kind of use cases are out there, because otherwise you're stuck in whatever implementation project you work with, which is fun, of course, but it's also fun to see what happens. In the outside world, sometimes these use cases are really, really strange. It might be regulatory, it might be just the way they're working, but I think it's always fun to see how people actually try to use the product and how it works in real life. And this is one way of doing that, looking at what you needed to do, basically.
And I want to raise something that's sort of for me, even though I'm not the developer. Is that something I get told all the time, is that there are other things you can do in an open source project rather than contribute code.
Yeah.
I mean, there will be translations, there will be documentation, there will be other things that are not, in this case, X++ code or .NET code or anything else, but it's required. It's something that needs to be there anyway. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can help out, just we'll drop the URL as well in the show notes, and I think just look on LinkedIn or Google for D365FO Admin Toolkit, right? Yeah, the Admin Toolkit.
Yeah, that's a great point, Johan. And there's many ways to get involved and many ways to contribute back. And I'm not here to gatekeep anything like that. As if you want to contribute 100%, I want to make sure that the contributions are acknowledged and that you're getting, the recognition there. So, looking, whatever you can do, or, there's opportunities, right, to help with it.
Yeah. Cool. So sad I don't see that we can do like a plugin handling in F&O in a safe way, like you do with like Notepad++. You could write your own plugin and drop it in, kind of like the runnable class, the jobs that you can nowadays do. You can upload models and run them. I don't think you should do that because it seems a little bit insecure. But it would be great if you could do that. Like you can write your own plugin and drop it in. But Johan is kind of saying don't do it. It creates
Just
inconsistencies
say no.
in the database. Just say no. Yeah.
So I think we are actually sort of getting to the end. I'm just wondering, is there anything else that you would like to highlight?
If people are interested in this or in the usage of it or anything like that, 100% they can feel free to reach out. I have a dedicated email specifically for the toolkit itself. It's D365FO Toolkit at outlook.com. Feel free to email that. And any questions you have and things like that. I'm also planning on showcasing this at DynamicsCon Live, the user group conference that's meeting up in May. I have a session there about security and licensing, and I'm absolutely going to bring the toolkit up there. So if people want to see a demonstration of it and they're going to be at the conference, 100% we'll have that there.
Yep. Very nice. And thank you for your contributions, Alex. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah.
Thank you, Gustav and Johan, for having me back. Always great to talk to you guys.
Yep. You too. Have a nice day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.